Willard Carroll Smith Jr. wasn't born a superstar. He wasn't born with money, power, or fame. He was born in West Philadelphia, a city that knew struggle, rhythm, and survival. His mother was a school board administrator. His father, a former U.S. Air Force engineer who ran a refrigeration business. They weren't rich, but they were disciplined, structured, focused. From a young age, Will showed signs he was different. He wasn't the loudest kid in the room. He was the most charismatic. He didn't fight to be seen. People just noticed him. He had a gift, the ability to talk his way out of anything. It's why they called him the Prince, always clean, always smiling, always in control. But like many great stories, his began with music. In the late 1980s, alongside his friend DJ Jazzy Jeff, Will created a sound that stood out, funny, fresh, family-friendly. At just 20 years old, he and Jeff won the first ever Grammy for Best Rap Performance. The Fresh Prince wasn't just a name, it was a promise of something bigger. And then he lost it all. Young, rich, unprepared. Will spent money like he had a bottomless pit of it. Cars, clothes, parties. When the IRS came knocking, they didn't just want back taxes. They took everything they could touch. The bank accounts, the assets, even his peace of mind. He was broke, famous, and broke. But life doesn't always destroy you. Sometimes it redirects you. And in 1990, television came calling. NBC needed a star, someone relatable, energetic, and real. They gave Will an audition. He had no formal acting experience, but he didn't need it. He walked into that room and didn't just play a role, he became one. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air wasn't just a show, it was a cultural reset. Will Smith became a household name. 6 seasons, global recognition, a black family on primetime TV, funny and flawed and proud. The world laughed with him, cried with him, grew up with him. But Will didn't stop at TV. While most sitcom stars faded, Will launched himself into something bigger, Hollywood. In the late 90s and early 2000s, he became the box office giant. Independence Day, Men in Black, Enemy of the State, Ali, I, Robot, The Pursuit of Happiness, I Am Legend. Year after year, hit after hit, he delivered. He was charming. He was funny. He could punch an alien and make you cry 10 minutes later. And America, no, the world, couldn't get enough. Off-screen, he built a family. He married actress Jada Pinkett. They raised 2 children, Jaden and Willow, in the public eye, but with a sense of bold identity. The Smiths weren't just a family, they were a brand, unapologetic, philosophical, transparent. To many, Will Smith became the blueprint. Success without scandal, fame without chaos, wealth without ego. Or so it seemed. But even legends carry weight. Even icons have shadows. Behind the red carpets, the interviews, the flawless image, there were cracks, rumors, questions, unspoken truths about love, reputation, and pressure. Will once said, "Money and success don't change people there, they just amplify what's already there." And for decades, he held it all together. The smile, the discipline, the control, until one night, when everything that had been buried came to the surface. But before we get to that, before the headlines, the backlash, the silence, let's go back to a single day. A day that was supposed to be the ultimate reward for a lifetime of sacrifice, talent, and perseverance. Let's begin where everything seemed perfect. The world was watching, and Will Smith was finally about to receive the recognition he had spent his entire life chasing. The morning of March 27, 2022, began like any other for Will Smith. But beneath the calm surface, there was an undeniable buzz, a quiet anticipation that today would be different. For decades, Will had been Hollywood's golden boy. From the fresh-faced rapper in West Philadelphia to a global superstar, he had conquered music, television, and blockbuster films. He was beloved by millions, a symbol of charisma, resilience, and charm. Yet despite all his success, there was one elusive honor that had always escaped him: the Academy Award, the Oscar, the highest accolade in the world of acting, a symbol of peer recognition and artistic legitimacy. Will had come close before, twice nominated for Best Actor, for Ali in 2001 and The Pursuit of Happiness in 2006. He had walked away empty-handed each time. Those moments stung deeply, but they never broke his spirit. Instead, they fueled his determination. This year was different. His role in King Richard was not just another performance, it was a transformation. He wasn't playing a character for the sake of entertainment. He was embodying a real man, Richard Williams, the fiercely devoted father who guided Venus and Serena Williams to greatness against all odds. The film had been praised for its depth, honesty, and emotional power. Critics called it his finest work. Audiences connected with the story of sacrifice, determination, and love. The Oscar buzz was deafening. On that crisp Sunday morning, Will woke up with a sense of calm confidence. His wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, was by his side, a constant pillar through every high and low of his career. Together, they prepared for the night ahead. The day passed in a flurry of interviews, fittings, and rehearsals. Reporters asked about his chances. Fans posted messages of support. Social media buzzed with speculation, but Will remained grounded. As evening fell, the atmosphere at the Dolby Theatre in Los Angeles was electric. The Academy Awards were more than a ceremony. They were a spectacle, a celebration of dreams realized and sacrifices honored. Will arrived in a sleek black tuxedo, his smile radiant yet composed. Cameras flashed as he entered the theater with Jada, the power couple captivating every eye. The ceremony unfolded with glamour and tension. Each award announced was met with applause, cheers, and occasional gasps. The Best Actor category, however, was the crown jewel. Everyone knew it. When the nominees were announced, Will sat among legends and newcomers alike. The room hushed as the presenter opened the envelope, and the Oscar goes to Will Smith for King Richard. The words hit the air like thunder. Will's face registered disbelief, then overwhelming joy. He stood, tears glistening in his eyes, as the audience erupted in applause. Cameras zoomed in on his beaming smile. He walked to the stage with a steady but emotional pace. Holding the golden statue, he took a deep breath. This was the moment he had dreamed of since his earliest days as a struggling artist. The applause swelled as he began his speech. "I want to say thank you to the Academy for this tremendous honor. I want to thank my family, my wife, my children, for being my rock, my reason, my strength. This role was not just a role. It was a story that needed to be told, about a father's love, about determination, about never giving up." His voice cracked with emotion. "I'm reminded that every champion was once a contender that refused to give up." The room listened, captivated. He spoke of sacrifice, of perseverance, and of the power of love to overcome obstacles. His words were humble yet powerful. When he finished, the audience rose to their feet. Standing ovations filled the theater. It was not just a victory for Will Smith, it was a victory for everyone who had ever struggled to be seen, heard, and valued. Backstage, friends and colleagues congratulated him. Messages poured in from around the world. For a moment, Will Smith was untouchable, an icon, a legend, a man who had finally earned the recognition he deserved. But beyond the glitz and glamour, there was something deeper. This win was validation, proof that persistence and passion can break barriers, that reinvention is possible, that no matter how many times life knocks you down, you can rise again. For Will, the Oscar was more than a trophy. It was a symbol of hope, a reminder that dreams, no matter how big, are never out of reach. The night ended with celebration, laughter, and quiet reflection. Will Smith's best day wasn't just about the award. It was about the journey, the years of struggle, the moments of doubt, the unwavering belief that led him here. In that single moment, under the spotlight, holding the golden statue, Will Smith stood not just as a winner, but as a testament to resilience, to love, and to the power of never giving up. It was a day that would be remembered forever. For decades, Will Smith stood at the summit of Hollywood, a symbol of charisma, resilience, and mass appeal. From his breakout days as the Fresh Prince to becoming a box office titan, Smith cultivated an image of joyful confidence, blending humor, depth, and humility. But on March 27, 2022, that image cracked before millions in a matter of seconds. What unfolded that night at the 94th Academy Awards wasn't just an unexpected turn in a live broadcast. It was, for Will Smith, arguably the worst day of his public and professional life. The morning began full of optimism. Will Smith was the favorite to win Best Actor for his performance in King Richard, a role that had earned him wide critical acclaim. For months, he had been on a triumphant award season run, winning the Golden Globe, BAFTA, SAG Award, and the Critics' Choice Award. His portrayal of Richard Williams, the father of tennis legends Serena and Venus, was heralded as one of the most powerful performances of his career. The day began with the usual rituals of Hollywood royalty preparing for the Oscars. Smith's team gathered at his Los Angeles home. Stylists, publicists, family. He was joined by his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, and his children, who had supported him throughout the King Richard campaign. Cameras flashed. His tailored tuxedo was sharp. He smiled, posed, and projected the energy of a man standing on the edge of a long-awaited coronation. That night wasn't supposed to be dramatic. It was meant to be historic, but something was simmering just below the surface. In the weeks leading up to the Oscars, Jada had spoken publicly about her alopecia, a medical condition that causes hair loss. Her shaved head became a topic of vulnerability and strength, something she had embraced, but which remained sensitive. For Will, watching his wife face ridicule and judgment in the media had become a recurring emotional trigger. He had spoken openly about his challenges with public scrutiny, his desire to protect his family, and the internal conflicts that fame often masked. Still, no one could have predicted what would happen next. As the ceremony progressed, anticipation built. When comedian Chris Rock took the stage to present the award for Best Documentary, he started with light jokes, playful, typical Oscar fare. But then came one sentence that would define the night. "Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it." The joke, a reference to Jada's shaved head, was meant as a quick jab. Chris Rock, known for his edgy humor, likely saw it as harmless. But Jada rolled her eyes immediately. Will, who initially smiled, caught his wife's reaction, and something shifted. Something years in the making. In a moment of raw emotion, Will Smith stood up, walked to the stage, and with millions watching around the world, slapped Chris Rock across the face. It was quick, almost surreal. For a second, people laughed, thinking it was scripted. But when Will returned to his seat and shouted, "Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth!" twice, the room froze. The silence was deafening. There were no punchlines, no laughter, just disbelief. Chris Rock, visibly stunned, tried to recover. The show went on, awkwardly, but the damage was done. Social media exploded. Celebrities whispered. The Academy scrambled behind the scenes. Viewers at home were confused. Was it real? Had Will Smith, the ultimate good guy, really just assaulted someone on live TV? Minutes later, Will Smith won Best Actor, the moment he had waited his entire career for. But the triumph was drowned in controversy. His tearful acceptance speech, where he apologized to the Academy and his fellow nominees, felt like an emotional unraveling. He didn't mention Chris Rock. The audience clapped, but the room felt fractured. The fallout came fast and brutal. Overnight, Will Smith went from Oscar winner to viral headline. Memes mocked him, news outlets condemned him, fellow actors and industry insiders began to speak out. In the days that followed, Will issued a formal apology to Chris Rock on social media, calling his behavior unacceptable and inexcusable. But the damage lingered. The Academy launched an investigation. Smith resigned from the Academy a few days later. Then came the final blow. He was banned from attending the Oscars for 10 years. Sponsors paused deals. Film projects were quietly shelved or delayed. His image, carefully built over 3 decades, was now stained with a single impulsive act. For the first time in his career, Will Smith wasn't just being questioned, he was being redefined. But perhaps the worst part wasn't the punishment. It was the public betrayal of his own values. Will had long spoken about the importance of self-control, emotional intelligence, love, and inner peace. He was the guy who mentored young actors, who inspired millions with his speeches, who carried himself with dignity. And in just 10 seconds, he had violated all of that, not just in front of the industry, but in front of the world. Behind the scenes, sources said Smith was devastated, embarrassed, wrestling with guilt, shame, and regret. Friends described him as going into a kind of emotional exile. His team shielded him from the noise, but Will knew this wasn't just about the slap. It was about what the slap symbolized: a man at war with himself. From the heights of glory to the depths of controversy, the story of Will Smith is one of extraordinary talent, resilience, and human complexity. On one hand, we saw a man standing on the grandest stage in Hollywood, holding the golden statue that represented decades of hard work, perseverance, and transformation. Winning the Academy Award for King Richard wasn't just about acting, it was about becoming the embodiment of a father's love, of black excellence, and of overcoming systemic barriers. That night was the culmination of a dream seeded in West Philadelphia, nurtured in TV studios and blockbuster sets, and delivered in one of the most powerful performances of his career. The audience rose. The world applauded. The legacy was solidified. But just moments later, that golden high was pierced by an act that would become one of the most talked about events in Oscar history. The slap heard around the world wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. In those few seconds, a carefully curated image began to crack. For many, Will Smith was the charming, affable, always in control superstar. What they saw that night was raw emotion, confusion, and something deeply human. A man pushed to his limit, making a mistake in the most public way possible. What followed was intense scrutiny, divided public opinion, and a forced introspection. He lost industry partnerships. The Academy suspended him. Some fans turned away, others stood by him, but the impact was undeniable. In the span of minutes, he had lived both the peak and the valley of public life. And yet, this is what makes Will Smith so deeply compelling. Not perfection, but authenticity. Not just success, but the ability to rise after the fall. In the months and years that followed, Will Smith issued public apologies, spoke about emotional healing, and tried to reconcile the man he was in that moment with the man he wants to be. He reminded us that being human means carrying both light and shadow. That legacy is not defined by a single moment, but by how we respond to it. So what does Will Smith's story teach us? It teaches us that no matter how high you rise, you're still vulnerable. That behind the camera flashes and award speeches are people fighting silent battles. That even in your darkest hour, redemption is possible. And that being seen, truly seen, means being accepted not only for your triumphs, but also for your flaws. Will Smith's journey isn't over. If anything, it's evolving. From Fresh Prince to Oscar winner, from controversy to reflection, his story continues. And maybe, just maybe, the best is still yet to come. If you found this story powerful, hit that like button, subscribe for more true stories from the lives of the world's biggest stars, and share your thoughts in the comments. This was the best day versus the worst day of Will Smith. Thanks for watching.